Okay, you're ready.
All right. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission Advisory Review Panel, convened to review applications submitted for the Regional Initiative Grants for fiscal year 2020. I'm Jennifer Perry, Commissioner from Terre Haute. Today is April 30th, 2019, and we are in the Indiana Humanities Building in Indianapolis. We welcome applicants who may be part of our audience today, and would like to remind you there is no direct contact or conversation about the evaluation and disposition of applications before, during, or after the meeting. Please be sure your cell phones are silenced throughout the meeting today as well. At this time, we'd like the panelists and staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, their occupation, and where they are from in the state. We'll start with you, Lauren.
My name is Lauren Curry. I am from Indianapolis. I am the Development Director for Indianapolis Movement Arts Collective.
Hi, my name is Tom Strite. I'm the Multimedia Manager at Indiana Humanities, and I'm based here in Indianapolis.
Deanna, the Grants Manager at IAC from Indianapolis.
And I'm Ms. Jen.
Stephanie Haynes, IAC Staff, Indianapolis.
My name is Chandler Roberts. I'm a grant writing assistant at the Indiana State Museum and Historic Sites, and I'm also from Indianapolis.
Liam Bonner, the Executive Director of the Indianapolis Symphonic Choir, and I am based in Indianapolis.
I'm Lillian Crabb. I am the Development Coordinator for Young Actors Theater in downtown Indianapolis.
Okay, great, thank you. We'll begin the panel review. This is how the process is going to work. I'll announce the application we'll review and ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based on the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that the application does not need to be recapped since everyone has read it. Just provide your comments. After the first reader is finished, I'll ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We are not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation from different perspectives panelists bring to the table. After the second reader is finished, I'll open the discussion to the full panel to offer their perspectives. Remember, in the interest of time, we are only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, we'll ask the panelists to leave during the application's evaluation, but there are no conflicts today, so that will not be necessary. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we ask the panel to update their scores and comments in the online system before we move on. It is common for scores or comments to change as a result of the broader discussion. These scores will save automatically. Are there any questions about this? If not, we're going to go ahead and jump in. We're going to review first the Buck Creek Players. First reader on this is Liam.
The Buck Creek Players are an organization of about 45 years old, performing community theater, 3 plays, 3 musicals currently, and there are plans to change that moving forward, which we'll talk about in the evaluation. I thought it was really great organizational excellence, especially as an all-volunteer nonprofit. It's hard enough with a paid staff, so the fact that it's volunteer is really great. And I think it's really great that they're already planning expenditures and financial cost savings with regards to some of the upcoming repair work on the building where they perform. The community engagement, it's a fun idea regarding the Play a Part fundraiser, but it makes me a little nervous that those with lower socioeconomic status could be excluded and it becomes pay to play rather than play a part. So I might look at reworking that a little bit. And I'd love to know more about specifically the production of Trap that they're doing and why that's been selected and being chosen for the targeted outreach. And I would love to see some numbers supporting the claim of seeing an increase in diversity for both attendance and auditioning as well as role casting. The arts education is quite strong. The one comment that I would make regarding arts education is that I stumbled upon the Blaine Jarrett scholarship information and all the materials they submitted, which I thought is fantastic, but there wasn't any discussion about it in the application. But it ends up being a scholarship for seniors or freshman college students for $1,000 or possibly more scholarship. And I would love to, I just think it's wonderful and would love to have more information on that in the application. The artistic excellence is quite high, and then of course there's always improvement to be made with regards to accessibility for those underserved populations of that high artistic quality.
Great, thank you, Liam. Lillian, do you have any additional?
I do.
Opposing?
I like their arts education as well, but the one point I'd like to make is I'd like to hear a lot more about their Roncalli program. That seems cool. I'm like, oh yes, I would like to hear more. But specifically about the learning by doing, I think that's a really compelling idea, but I want to hear more specific criteria. Like how exactly in lesson plans they affect an effective classroom by learning by doing. Organizationally, I thought the application showed great strength, especially for a volunteer organization. The way they talk about, they seem to do a good job of measuring themselves by their own goals in terms of like a small organization that likes performing in small spaces and talking about that as an asset in terms of intimate settings. I thought was really strong, as opposed to maybe saying, we're still trying to grow, we're trying to be on the scale of a professional theater. I respect that about their organization. And similarly, the way they discuss community engagement makes it clear that their community, there's not a governing body saying this is what the community wants. They are run by community members, it seems, in an effective way, and serving the actors just as much as the audiences. So I thought those things were particularly strong, and I'd love to hear more about arts education.
Okay, great, thanks, Lillian. All right, opening it up to the full group, were there any additional opposing comments to add? Anything new to add? Okay. I'll let everybody take a moment, update your scores, update your comments. Give me a little eye contact when you're ready. And you can go ahead and pull up the next one too. Central Indiana Dance is our next one, so once you're all right, are we ready to move? Okay, next one is Central Indiana Dance Ensemble, and Thomas, I have you down as first reader on this one.
Right, so Central Indiana Dance Ensemble was started in 1999. They've got about 50 dancers, ages 8 to 18. They put on about 2 performances a year, so one in the wintertime, they usually do the Nutcracker, and then there's a springtime performance. It's usually something a little bit more upbeat. I think in the application they said Sleeping Beauty. I could be wrong there. But some of the things that I noticed in their application, they talked about a small drop in their ticket sales last year, which was part of their financials. And so there was a lot of other competing groups, especially national acts that were coming in to do the Nutcracker, that was drawing away a lot of their audiences. And they kind of talked in their application of what they can do moving forward in the future. To kind of rectify that. They had also noted in their application about they would do a lot of public performances to schools, so they kind of like we did 1,000 student they did a performance for 1,000 students of the Nutcracker, and so this next year they were looking to they did an evaluation. They want to do some more programming like that, but they want to do maybe some education with that audience, because it sounded like there might have been a problem where they had to do some education, maybe on audience behalf of this is what you do when you watch a ballet. This is some of the things we need to look for. I think some of the metrics didn't quite tell the story of what they did. So it was more like a general metric of we did 1,000 students. I did also suggest that maybe there was a blind spot to, if we're doing the Nutcracker year and year again, and we're starting to see some ticket sales decline, maybe there is a chance for the organization to grow a little bit and find new interpretation of the Nutcracker or some other performance that would increase audience participation. but I thought the artistic quality was great. Yeah, that was kind of my comments on that.
Okay, great, thank you. Lauren, have you down as second reader?
My comments, the organizational section was quite strong. The only thing that would have strengthened it for me would be 100% board giving. The community engagement section, I was missing how addressing barriers not only of attending performance but also training. They didn't really discuss working class students in the school receiving the dance training and not just providing shows for a non-paying audience. Also, remember that that is more along the lines of audience development rather than community engagement, or this organization should remember that, and that to be more fully engaged with the schools, they need to establish, or one way would be to establish a more ongoing relationship with the school and the students attending the school. Moving on to the arts education section. Participation in RDA shows a commitment to good training, so that's excellent. Again, a discussion or mention of how to lower barriers to training and not just performances would strengthen this section. Artistic quality I thought was excellent. The only, again, section is D because it addresses underserved audiences, and this application did not really discuss underserved audiences with regard to training. And that, I think, concludes my comments.
Okay, great. Open it up to the full group. Is there anything new, additional, opposing, something we haven't heard?
I'd like to second Lauren with a slight change of opinion. I thought definitely I'd be interested in seeing greater than 30% board giving. But I'd also like to hear, I think they describe their board well, but they don't describe their board's demographics. They don't describe diversity in terms of gender, age, racial, ethnic identity, which I think would be helpful. Or if that's not something they're looking for, address why. And then in their community engagement section, I thought it strengthened throughout, actually. From the beginning, it was kind of about like, great, a lot of our students go on to be professionals, and then the focus changed in a compelling way to, oh, we have a plan for engaging students and it's based on feedback. So I felt like the application was making progress in terms of that, and I'd like to see more and maybe fleshing out that idea throughout the application.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Okay, let's take a moment, update scores and comments in the system. Okay, once you're finished, go ahead and pull up Festival Music Society. Let me know when you're ready. Ready? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. We have Festival Music Society. Chandler, I have you down as first reader.
Okay, so the Festival Music Society was founded in 1966. They specialize in early music. They have a number of concerts, including their spring concert, and then the actual early music festival, and then other concerts throughout the year. Overall, I thought organizational excellence was good. I didn't really have anything to note there. In community engagement, I felt that it could have been a little bit clearer sort of throughout. They really focused in on sort of the youth and senior populations, but they didn't really say quite how they were going to sort of include them in the planning process and the evaluation process. So I think they could have expanded on that a little bit in the application, and sort of how they're actually going to go about engaging these specific populations. I mean, I appreciate that they've sort of identified 2 populations that they want to focus on. I think there just needed to be a little more clarity on how they were going to go about that. One positive thing I did note was the fact that they do work with teachers in planning their curriculum and sort of getting teacher feedback, which I think is good. And then in arts education, they focus in on sort of their free family concerts, in-school workshops, offering tickets to students, and then having sort of pre-concert talks. I think all of those are good. I don't know if sort of just free concerts sort of counts as arts education. I mean, it's good that they're having these concerts that are accessible and students can come to. But it would have been helpful to see either they have different programs or a little bit stronger focus on arts education. And then didn't really have anything to note towards artistic quality. I think they had good examples. And then just other overall comments, I think they could have just been a little more explicit on how they're increasing diversity and access and serving underserved populations.
Okay, great, thank you. Lauren, I have you down as second reader on this one.
I agree, and then organizational excellence, I think, yeah, it's a strong section. Community engagement, agree with everything Chandler said, and then more specifically, in the application they mentioned young audiences, OASIS, and IPS, and can they improve their participant tracking by having a better or a more thorough relationship with their partner organizations? Because I think my comment again on arts education is, again, better participant tracking would strengthen that section. What else? Artistic quality I thought was good. The only thing was, and someone correct me if I was wrong, the website as listed in the application is emindy.org, and the actual website is iemusic.org.
Mm-hmm.
So, just you want to make sure that's right in your application. But other than that, I agree with all those comments.
Okay, great. Opening it up to the full group, any new, opposing, or additional comments that have not been covered?
I kind of go ahead.
Please.
Okay. I was gonna say I want to piggyback off of Lauren's comment. There is I don't think the the materials that they provided in their artistic quality quite matched their program as well. They talk about like the festival. There was not like a picture people at the festival, or the video was like of Zorro. If anybody watched it, it was part of it. And I think they did a good job like showing the music, but they talked about the festival, and I've seen some of the previous materials from this applicant, and I don't think those materials were much more engaging, and there was like bright vivid colors and people playing lutes, and I think I noted in the application it's a chance for kids to say sack butt in a classroom setting and actually get away with it. So I felt like there was a lot of fun things that they do that just weren't quite represented in their application. So.
Okay, based on the criteria we have today in the application that's been provided, are there any other additional comments?
I'm just going to have to disagree with Chandler on the comment regarding free concerts not counting as arts education, because for me it is, especially with the kids being there and being able to meet with the musicians and talk with them about the instruments. So to me that is arts education.
Okay. All right, I think we've covered this one.
If I might say one thing, sort of contrast, I thought the artistic quality video of Zorro was a really delightful representation of bringing old music to modern communities in an effective way. But yeah, I'm like, oh, if it showed more programming, that would be cool too.
Okay, great. Go ahead and update your comments and your scores in the system, please. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and pull up the next one, which is Footlite Musicals. Everybody ready? You good? Okay. All right, the next one is Footlite Musicals, and first reader on this one is Lillian.
Right, as far as their organizational, well, Footlight goes back a long time and they're all volunteer organization. It's really cool that they own their own building. It was gifted to them. And that speaks a lot to the organizational excellence and financial stability. In their budget, they list like space rentals as a part of their income, which is really valuable if they can use that space to get additional income, especially if that helps them keep their ticket prices and their summer camp prices low, which they do seem to be. The board giving was a question of mine. Their working board does seem to be pretty effective, and I like the diversity of experience and age that they show on their board. But I guess with board giving, if only 53% is giving, they could give it a small level. I would encourage them to do so from a dedication standpoint in the future. As far as their community engagement goes, I'm interested in the way that they're talking about themes with every performance. It seems like they're doing a good job of making a community conversation happen around certain themes like bullying for Hunchback of Notre Dame and suicide prevention in Fun Home and things that people are interested in talking about as separate from like, let's discuss the merits of this specific performance. I thought that was a strength. And in the idea category, they're making a strong case for their American Sign Language interpretation and adding that they're on the Indigo bus line. I can imagine an organization that's on the bus line not including that, but I think that's a strength and I'm glad they mentioned that. Removing the barrier of transportation for several folks. In their artistic documentation, strong video. I particularly appreciated one of the speakers who was talking about the way in which their programming really serves the people involved, not so much as the audiences. I think at Footlite, it really is about offering an opportunity to perform in a high quality performance for community members who are interested in the arts but might not have that opportunity otherwise. And I would be interested in hearing more about that rather than try to kind of treating them like a professional theater where it's all about the audience's experience. I think they're providing a really valuable experience to, especially the young people, the under 18s and the 18 to 25 young professionals. Yeah, overall pretty strong, but I'd like to see in future more of a focus on the value that they're legitimately providing to those participating in the theater.
Great, thank you. Second reader, Thomas.
Yeah, I echo a lot of the statements that Lillian had. I thought it was interesting that the organization was going through their own strategic process right now. And so they're starting to address some of the issues that they're finding through there. And same with like the diversification of their board in terms of like disability and starting to address a lot more of those issues. I thought it was really exciting. So.
Great. Opening it up to the full group, any new, additional, or opposing comments to add? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and update scores, update comments. And when you finish, Freetown Village will be our next one. You can get that prompt. Are we ready to? Yep. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to number 5, Freetown Village. And first reader on this, I've got Lauren.
Freetown Village is a living history museum with the mission to educate the public about African American lives, arts, and culture. They seem to do so when contracted to, and a lot throughout the public library system. For organizational excellence, I think that I was wanting to see a further breakdown of contract services. I think there was an actual line item that said contract services, and I was wondering, I guess throughout this application it's not clear to me where the actors are coming from. Are they being paid? I'm sure I must have just missed it, and if I did, please somebody chime in. Then moving on to community engagement, I think I just would like to see more specificity about the organizations that contract Freetown. And I think that a further discussion of those partnerships would help Freetown understand who they're serving and then put it into the application for panelists to be able to see. I want to see more about the community that Freetown serves, not in an audience way, but in that, who are your actors? Where are they coming from? What do you do for them? Are they paid? Do they get, what kind of training do they receive? There's not much about the actors that I found. Again, please chime in. Arts education, I thought was their strongest section. Artistic quality, I thought that video was really wonderful. The website is very nicely laid out and professional. It's clearly updated regularly. I think just generally participant tracking, a more thorough discussion of their partner organizations, and more about just remembering that community engagement doesn't have to mean people outside of your organization. The community that the organization engages can be like the theatrical community within the Black community. That can be one of the communities that you engage, and I just want to know more about that relationship. And those are my comments.
Okay, great, thank you. Liam, have you got
Yeah.
a second reader?
Just a couple of things to add. The organizational excellence is really great, but I noticed that a bulk of the reliance comes from grants on the funding, and I might looking at the option of focusing on some individual contributions, because I think it'd be a great way to continue to engage the community and receive the support of those who believe in the work that they're doing. Then the other aspect that I wanted to add to was the artistic quality, which I agree was very, very high. I think there's just a little bit more room for improvement with regards to social media and marketing materials to really get the word out.
Okay, anyone else have anything to add? New, opposing? No? Okay, let's go ahead and update our scores and comments in the system. Remember, they save automatically. We'll have, next up will be Hancock County Children's Choir. So. Okay. All right, next up, Hancock County Children's Choir. Is everyone ready to move on? Okay, and I've got Thomas down as first reader, please.
Yeah. So with the Hancock Children's Choir, one thing I noticed right away is they have a focus on building people up as well as the choir. still focusing on a lot of the artistic qualities of being able to sight read music and sing, and really putting forth that excellence as a singer as well as being a good person. So they have a lot of different events that exist to sort of to build yourself up. So they do like a fundraiser, or not fundraiser, they do a luncheon with different funders, and they try to expand or expose their singers to a lot of other social situations besides here you are as a choir, let's go up and sing and be and that'd be it. I thought it was really interesting how many different sponsors that they had and different funders for their activities. I saw a lot of big names on there, which I was pretty amazed by. I wrote on the community engagement, or I saw some in community engagement. The hosting luncheons, like again, that I've talked about, is going to help them reach more of the funder base. They're trying to recruit new members that same way. I thought with the artistic education, they display a high quality of art, and focusing again like on the student as well as putting forth that. I thought they did a really good job telling their story online. But yeah, I thought it was great overall.
Okay, great, thank you. Chandler, I have you down as second reader.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. The only thing one main thing that I noted in the arts education section, when asked about who will benefit, I felt like they could have talked about how their arts education is, because the question does ask if it's benefiting the underserved populations, and I felt that they didn't really answer that portion of the question. So I think just going forward to make sure that they answer all parts. That was the sort of main difference that I noted.
Okay, great. Opening up to the full group, are there any new, additional, or opposing comments?
Yes.
No, please.
I was also very enthusiastic about the way that this choir talks about holistic education, about skills, choir skills specifically being valid to people who are not necessarily going to be professional singers, being valid. But I was a little concerned about the extent to which they focus on like polish and social graces and etiquette. I think that can be useful, but I didn't necessarily see it justified. As in, like, what particular benefit is this adding? I think that it could be justified, but it wasn't in this case. So just like in the future, I'd be interested in hearing from them, like, are the social graces and etiquette element of the education like a way of equalizing and providing opportunities to students that like are going to be expected to behave a certain way and wouldn't know, or is it sort of contributing to a little bit of elitism in that kind of way? Not that it is, I just want to hear more. And specifically with the community engagement, I really like how they're talking about like announcing their season early, but it doesn't seem to involve a lot of feedback. So I'd be interested, like, it seems like they're really talking about planning early and being able to engage a lot of people, but they don't necessarily show me how those people are able to communicate back to the organization. And I'd like to see that.
Okay.
That was what I was gonna say.
Okay. Were you going to add anything more beyond that?
Yep.
That's okay. Wonderful. All right. Let's go ahead and update scores and comments in the system. And once you're ready, we'll move to Hendricks Symphonic Society. No, I'm sorry, Hendricks Civic Theater. I was out of order. My bad. Thank you for the your nonverbals or verbals there were excellent. All right, when you're ready, And Liam is clearly ready. Thank goodness.
I just know I'm the first reader.
Yeah, you are, which is why you were on it. Hendricks Civic Theater, Liam, first reader.
The Hendricks Civic Theater is a 40-year-old organization. Happy anniversary in the 1920 season to them. Some great opportunities to celebrate that anniversary, I think, for them this coming season. They do 6 productions each season, and have a Rising Star Youth production featuring the town for the 6 to 19-year-old range. They do a mix of shows, and so let's go into this application. I thought organizational excellence was just really great on all fronts, organizational excellence. The community engagement, so I think that it's always tricky with room for improvement regarding community engagement because it's quite strong, but as a theater nerd myself, I particularly love the reference of community organization with a theater habit. And I really love the focus on the play a role together, for the focus on the family. I just think that's a fantastic idea on so many levels. So great accessibility and engagement there with the community. Arts education, very strong here, especially with from the Rising Star program up through the Encore Scholarship that they mention. Big fan of that. The artistic quality is super high. A little still, like I think most organizations these days, room for improvement with providing underserved audiences to the aforementioned high artistic quality. And I think that's pretty much it for me. I very much enjoyed this application.
Yeah. Great. Chandler, I've got you down a second reader.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that as well. In regards to community engagement, I did note that they didn't seem to really mention any ways that they've received direct feedback from participants or from the community. And sort of that like two-way relationship, I didn't really see that explained. So I think that just sort of making sure to answer that question and give a little more depth to it and fully explain how you're building that two-way relationship and getting feedback, I think would have been helpful. Other than that,
Okay. Opening up to the full group. Any new, additional, or opposing comments? Okay. Go ahead and update scores and comments, if you will. And then we'll move on to the Symphonic Society. All right. Is everyone ready to move on to Hendricks Symphonic Society? Okay. I have Thomas down as first reader on this one.
That's good. All right. So the Hendricks Symphonic Society mission is to provide a broad range of excellent classical music experiences. They use the word ICE: inspire, challenge, and educate. And so, while reading through their application, I was noticing in their financials that they had actually fallen into the red last year, and they have an ambitious fundraising program for this next year to kind of correct that. I had noted that maybe some diversification of the skill on their board, so a lot of them seem to be symphonic players, could really benefit the organization. For their community engagement, I had noticed that they seem to be working like at an audience and not with an audience on some of their programming. They had stated that some of the audience they wanted to see some young professionals, but there really wasn't a lot of going into that with them or talking about how they wanted to better engage these young professionals in their application. I thought their arts education was pretty good. I think there could be more of a story that they could tell as an organization of older musicians working with younger musicians. And the artistic quality I thought was great. I was digging around on the website. I could only find one recording of the actual symphony themselves. So that was one thing that I had noted, that maybe doing some more public recordings of the symphony so that we could all enjoy it might be nice too.
Excellent. Lauren, I have you down as second reader.
Yes. Organizational excellence I thought was strong. The community engagement, I wrote a discussion of the broader community would strengthen this section. They mentioned ensuring that seniors have access to their programming, and I think I might actually rethink that comment. So anyway, moving along to arts education, and please somebody jump in if I was wrong. I wrote that the applicant did not answer section D of the arts education portion, and that although brevity is appreciated, I think complete sentences and proofreading are a must for a formal application. To me, it's clear that students will benefit from the programming, but better participant tracking, which I've said so many times, will reveal if any of those students are racially or economically diverse. And so efforts in that direction would strengthen this section. Artistic quality, I agree. Website is professional and easy to navigate. And those are my comments.
Okay, any, opening up to the group, any new, additional, or opposing comments?
I agree with a lot that Lauren had to say. For artistic quality, I did not see any example posted of artistic documentation. I mean, they did upload their website, but there wasn't like a specific item for artistic documentation. And then just overall, I felt like there was just not enough information in the application to really understand sort of the points that they were trying to make. So I think, again, like they could have sort of expanded on what they were saying. And I did notice they didn't answer section D in the application.
Okay, any new additional or opposing comments, Lillian or Liam?
Right, like what Lauren said, where in arts education D was not answered. I also felt that in community engagement under idea, that question number 2, how will your organization get input from the people who will benefit, was also not really answered. It just stated that they would get a summary of the number of residents that attended, and along with feedback from attendees, which is not very clear to me exactly how that input is collected from those who will benefit.
Okay, let's go ahead. Oh, you want to
Just
answer?
one other second, that I feel like on the complete paragraphs thing, there are a lot of lists, and those look like a strong outline to me. Like I feel like start with those lists next time, but develop them into paragraphs, and hopefully you'll keep the clarity there. But I'd like to, same.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and update scores if you need to, or any comments that you need to. Take a moment to do that. Sure. How's everyone doing? Do we need to stop and take a break? You want to keep
This
going?
is about halfway. You okay?
Okay. All right. We'll roll.
We'll check back in a little bit.
Yep. If it changes, just give me a heads up. The next one we'll move on to is the Indiana Performing Arts Center Theater Company. Go ahead and pull that up when you get a moment. Okay. Everybody ready to move on? Okay, so Indiana Performing Arts Center Theater Company. Chandler, I have you down as first reader, please.
Yes, the Indiana Performing Arts Center was founded in 2005. They're a theater organization that seeks to develop, nurture, empower, and educate youth. And they specifically focus in on African American heritage and culture. For organizational excellence, I think they answered all of the questions. They seem to have a good financial background. They seem to manage their resources well. I didn't see any issue there. In this section, I did note that they would benefit from just making sure they've gone through and proofread and edited everything that they've written. I think it makes for a stronger application. I noted that most in the organizational excellence section. Yeah. And then for community engagement, I felt that overall, the organization did a really good job of working with participants, volunteers, other partnering organizations to sort of create community ties and to work on community engagement. Felt like they did a good job of working to be inclusive and accessible, to sort of build diverse audiences. Just overall, I appreciate the effort that they put into that. For arts education, I felt that the section was strong as well. I appreciate that they're working with communities in Indianapolis that are underserved. And they're working to increase skills in their students. So I felt like the arts education section was strong. I think they just overall present a good range of programs, performances, and workshops. They seem dedicated to working on diversity and inclusion, and really working with communities in the city that need it. All I have to say.
Okay. Second reader, Leah?
Yeah, a couple things of organizational excellence. I was a little confused with regards to the financial explanation, mentioning the opportunity for a match up to that specific wording, as well as the listing of what the potential requested funds would offset. That was a little confusing in the explanation. I maybe wouldn't have been as confused if I just looked at the financial statement. And just a little typo in the board financial support. I did a 180 when I read that it was 12 because it asked for the percent, and that's actually the number of board members. So it is 100%, but I had to do math when I looked at the document viewer. So all 12 board members are participating, which makes 100%. So just a typo there, because you don't want 12% of your board participating. Community engagement, this one also was another one that did not answer that second part of the how will your organization get input from the people who will benefit. That wasn't listed at all. And I love the arts education. I would love to have more information on things that are not just the student taught arts and reading on stage, the STARS program. I think that's really great. I get the impression there are more arts education things going on with the organization, but that was the only mention of what they're doing. And then just a little bit more improvement with regards to the social media and marketing efforts, just getting that out there with the materials.
Okay, great. Opening up to the group. Anyone have anything to add?
Just briefly, and this could go for a lot of organizations, to just invest in a high quality video, or I thought the video was good and showed their programming and just the technical excellence of the video. Just invest a little more in that if it's going to be part of an application.
Yeah. Anyone else have any new additional or opposing comments? No. Seeing none, let's go ahead and update scores and comments in the system. We'll head to Indiana Writers next. When you're ready, Indiana Writers Center. And I have Lillian down as the first reader, please.
Great. I'll just start with it. It was really a pleasure for me to read this application. I thought it was extremely strong overall, and I will proceed to back that up. It was, overall, it seems like the way that this organization is defining the populations it serves and the ways in which those populations are underserved in a really new and interesting way that kind of hinges on storytelling, in terms of like they're trying to serve communities that want to and individuals that want to tell their story better, and they're like the Indiana Writers Center offering the tool of helping people better tell their own story seems like a really important need, and they're doing it beautifully. And that the diversity of the audiences they're serving, specifically where they're located on the Near East Side, is very compelling. There's a high amount of racial diversity, age diversity, socioeconomic diversity, I'm really compelled by the idea of offering classes for seniors to write memoirs. That seems like a cool definition of like, yeah, that population is underserved and they're providing them with a really valuable service that makes their lives of higher quality. Like that's great. Yeah, I guess the mission of supporting writers of all ages and reaching out to those whose voices are rarely heard is just very compelling. And the fact that they also aren't aspiring to like professional writers, if you want to, great, but it seems like they're really doing a good job of helping all of the people engaged with them reach their goals rather than reaching goals that the organization sets for them, which is powerful. Financially, they're strong. They have a lot of donations and they seem very conservative in their expenses. I think the membership program looks like a really effective one in this case. There's a unique model for membership, which otherwise might seem like a fundraising thing, which is fine. But in this case, it seems like the membership is really of value to those who would be taking classes a lot of the time. Let me see. There's so many good things about this application. Oh, their partnerships. Their partnerships seem to be very well thought out and intentional and help them serve communities. So yeah, there are a ton of partnerships. They all look effective. The family writing workshop with Asante Theater seems particularly cool. And as exemplified in their artistic documentation, I was like, wait a second, this is photos. I was kind of expecting a video. Wait, no, the photos are extremely compelling. My first thought was, oh, like, these aren't going to communicate as much as the video, but they did. So nice job on the photos. They showed a good diversity of programming, and if that helped them, if they're able to communicate well with photos without spending money on a video, I kind of respect that too. Like that could be a significant expense for a small organization, and I think they handled it beautifully. But yeah, I thought this was extremely well written, which is unsurprising considering that their focus is writing, but wonderful. And I was extremely convinced that this organization is answering a need of communicating to a lot of people in our community that their voice matters.
Great, thank you. Second reader, Thomas?
Yeah, I echo just about everything he said. Really. The only other thing I wanted to add is that that they take established authors that are already writing things and show them careers that are beyond just you can write for a publication, write for a book, and things like that. So it was a great application.
Okay.
So into it.
Opening it up to the full group, is there anything to add that's opposing or additional?
I would just say I agree with everything. I really enjoyed this application, and that's all the more reason you should get your board to give to 100%.
Okay. Let's go ahead and update scores and comments in the system. And we will. Next one pulled up. Our next application will be from the Museum of Miniature Houses and Other Collections. And I think everybody's ready. When you are ready, Lauren, go.
Yes. So the Museum of Miniature Houses and Other Collections preserves and exhibits quality miniature houses, room settings, single pieces, and is providing workshops to the community, and some performances, just various programming. For organizational excellence, that was a very strong section. For community engagement, so let's see, I wrote the only specified, specifically defined community to be engaged was millennials. which that is a legitimate, if broad, answer, but there was no evidence to support the claim that the museum is involving millennials or any other group in their programming decisions, which is different from developing programming for millennials. So just keep that distinction in mind. The interactions with senior residences could be better described also as audience development rather than engagement. So just remember the difference between developing something for an audience and developing it with them. I'm sure I've written something about participant tracking because I always do. I don't know this for I think in the arts education section, I don't know if I'm out of line or I think it's a pet peeve to me when organizations include features of their building or parking lot that are simply ADA compliant as evidence of accessibility. I did not interpret accessibility with regard to this application as just ADA compliant features of your building. I would not discuss ADA compliant features of a physical location in an application like this, but that might be, someone tell me otherwise and I will revise my score there. Active recruitment of economically diverse community members for workshops would strengthen this section. Artistic quality, overall a strong section. So I think addressing economic diversity in particular, and then providing evidence through participant tracking, I think is my broad overarching comment for this application.
Thank you, Lauren. Lillian, I have you a second reader.
I guess I'll just go through the sections. I have a couple of comments. I appreciate that they have an endowment, which is, I feel like, really rare in a small organization like this. It allows them to be stable at a small scale without trying to like become a huge thing. They're stable. I love it. And that helps them offer workshops with free admission, which is very cool. I was impressed, and perhaps this is more a statement about me than the application, but I wasn't convinced before reading the application that miniatures were applicable to a lot of different art forms and a lot of different audiences. And they seem like they're really doing cool work on that. It must be a really, like, group of people who care about miniatures and they're applying that. Like, I love, like, they have a Minumentals contest at Carmel High School. Very interested in that. The way of learning about other things by decreasing their scale is cool, and I hadn't thought about that. That said, I think they could make a more compelling argument in this application for why that is a cool thing. Like, my mind has been opened to, wow, miniatures are interesting, but even if from the grant writer's standpoint, that's an assumption, they could stand to add more about that. And also the inclusion of like how many Facebook and Instagram likes and followers they had, I thought was a really good idea, especially if they're reaching for millennials. I thought that was a cool way of tracking popularity that many people wouldn't think of and might be seen as petty, but I thought it was valid.
And I'm sorry, just to go back, I do want to say that after reading the application, I wanted to visit the museum. So they're doing a good job of getting people interested in miniatures. So that's excellent. I just, as far as the idea part of the application goes, was my stumbling block. But yes, I agree with those comments.
I could add one more thing too. I thought the artistic documentation was a really good opportunity for them to talk about why are miniatures valuable in the first place. And I feel like they kind of passed up that why question. Fine video, nice. But yeah, it could be more powerful in the future.
Okay, great. Anyone have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd like to mention the artistic quality. I believe there was mention in the application about the video tour, and that's sort of what I was hoping to see when I clicked the YouTube link, but it was somebody singing. which I know was part of the program, but to me, the video of someone singing did not represent what this overall organization does with miniatures. I wanted to see miniatures. I wanted to see the classes I wanted to see, but it was someone sitting on a stool and singing, which sort of threw me a little bit because I was a little confused about what was going on in that artistic. So I had to go back to the application and realize. So I think if I had just seen that video, I wouldn't have any clue what the organization was. So that's all I had with regards to that.
Okay, anyone else have anything else? Additional, new? opposing?
I did think it was interesting, going back to like the inclusion factor, was that they had tours available in different languages, readily available. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. So.
Mhm. Okay, let's go ahead and update scores and comments in the system, please. Take a moment to do that. Prepare for our next one.
It's been an hour. Does anyone need a break at this point? Okay.
Thank you for looking.
You guys are rolling along.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. Good
Wow.
run.
All right, application 12, New World Youth Orchestras. Liam, I have you as first reader on that one.
All right, New World Youth Orchestras, developing and nurturing the musical talent of young people in Indianapolis and Central Indiana. Doing both orchestral masterworks, traditional and contemporary. Really, really strong application. Half the year for the board to meet is something that I'm a little jealous of. I would love to get my board to meet a little bit less personally because I think it allows for the process to happen without getting out of control. So I think it's a great balance. Community engagement is really excellent as well. It's hard for an organization that's so education focused to be engaged with the community at large, but really wonderful stuff happening with regards to the Notable Measures Initiative and the acquisition of the donated instruments. Arts education, just fantastic programs and incredibly strong here. Would have liked some more description of how underserved populations would benefit from these great programs being offered. Artistic quality, just incredibly high as well. It's very impressive. And the one thing I would love to know more about is some numbers, percentages of those accepted to college to pursue music, as well as those percentages who were accepted and awarded scholarships that came out of this program, because I would suspect with the organization's program and training that they'd be quite high. So I think that would be some really great information to support the narrative and what they do.
Okay, great, thank you. Second reader, Lillian.
Their artistic quality seems extremely high, and it feels really clear that artistic quality and arts education are basically synonymous, and both of them are very, very strong at the New World Youth Orchestras. Their video is great. I love the way in arts education that this application really went into the details of how each program benefits specific audiences, each orchestra for different kind of levels of advanced students versus of experience in students. It was cool to not just brush by, this is what happens, but like, no, these are the criteria we're looking for and this is what we do. That said, I wasn't extremely clear on, and please let me know if I missed this, but I wasn't sure if it's a tuition-based program or a dues-based program, and therefore, if it's not a free program, do they do scholarships? Are they accessible? If it is a free program, tell me that for sure, and if it's not, I would be interested in knowing if they have scholarship opportunities. And then, overall, I thought it was extremely strong. The only other comment was in organizational excellence. I'd like to hear a little bit more as the organization describes their board, what they're looking for as they add to their board. They say they're in a time of growth, but they didn't specify what they're looking for in terms of prospective board members, and I think that is a valuable thing for us to know.
Okay, great, thank you. Opening it up to the full group. Anyone have any new, additional, or opposing comments?
I sort of want to know, now I'm questioning, because I assumed it was a tuition-based program, and then I took issue with the notable measures, which I think the notable measures thing is great, but the way that they wrote it seemed that it was an initiative started by the students in the program and not by the organization itself. So I sort of took issue with the organization taking credit for this student initiative to defray tuition costs for potential students. So, and then in their financials, I noted non-notable measure scholarships are about 1% of the income earned from paying students. So that whole comment section could be an error if I have misinterpreted. But if I'm not in error, then I think that is something that they could work on if they can afford it, or, you know, address it, discuss it in some other way.
I can agree with you with regards to the notable measures now, in the sense of it's not actually very clear the way it's written whether it is a New World Youth Orchestra initiative. And so maybe the wording is off. So now I'm confused as to whether it's a New World initiative or the students themselves initiated it. But with regards to the 1% comment, I would just suggest that it's also a recent program. And so those take time to get moving. If it had been established for the past 10 years, then I'd say 1% is way too low type of thing. But for a recent initiative, I think it's you got to start somewhere.
Okay. But I also thought this application was quite strong as well.
Good discussion. Anything else to add? Okay, go ahead and update your scores and comments, please. And when you have a moment, we'll move on to partnerships for Lawrence. Alright, everybody got it up? Ready to go? Okay. And Thomas, I have you as first reader, please.
Cool. So Arts for Lawrence is relatively, I would consider them like a newish organization. I mean, they've been around for 10 years, but they have just gone through a bunch of rapid growth here in the past couple of years. I really think it's, I enjoyed reading their section on how they describe exactly where Lawrence is at. So it's located between 46235, which was, like Marion County, is one of the most poorest zip codes, and then it's also right next to one of its wealthiest too. So they're right in the middle of it, and they are trying to figure out how exactly to navigate and how to bring arts to both sections, or to everyone there. They recently received a new grant from Lilly, which they talk about in here. It's not updating their financials, obviously, because they haven't received that grant yet. But it's exciting to see them grow and grow and grow, and their initiatives just keep going from there. The only thing I thought this was a really strong application. I thought the only thing that I could really add is they didn't talk about they talked about barriers of entry for especially people from 46235 to enjoy some of the programming. They talked about having free events, and they talked about having all these different things going on, and how can we get people to come out for this, especially like family days. But talking about some of the actual physical barriers, so working with Indigo, working with a busing service to get people from different areas to Lawrence to enjoy these things as well. But overall, I thought it's a fantastic application.
Great, thank you. Chandler, I have you as second reader.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think it was a good application too. I don't know if I really had anything different to add. I did know when they were talking about community engagement, they said that they reflected the diversity of Lawrence in their audiences, and throughout they did a really good job with like including numbers and metrics and things like that. So they could have just stuck in like some metrics to show that they are actually matching that diversity. That was the only thing I noted.
Okay, opening up to the group. Anything new, additional, or opposing?
Yes. I was interested, like, I thought it was a very great application. I'd like to see a clearer mission statement in the future. They talk about inspiring everyone every day, and I think that's valid, but I would be interested in hearing specifically in their mission statement a little bit more about how they do that. I really value the way they talk about asking their participants to provide their demographic information, especially I work on doing that. The tracking can be a hard part to track your audience's information if they're voluntarily walking in. I thought they expressed a lot of sensitivity and organizational strength by talking about the way they ask people for their information like that in order to write grants like this.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Anything to add? Okay. Go ahead and update your scores and your comments, please. Give me a minute to read that. And our next application is going to be Philharmonic Orchestra of Indianapolis. Get a chance. All right, so everybody had a chance to pull it up. Philharmonic Orchestra of Indianapolis. Liam, first reader.
All right, the Philharmonic Orchestra of Indianapolis. Their mission is to present classical music at affordable prices, feature soloists and masterworks, and new compositions, conserve the abilities of volunteer musicians of all ages and occupations, and aid young people to appreciate and perform great music. And looking through all the organizational excellence documents, they've got a very clear purpose, mission, and vision. I am obsessed with the themes for their season, from the series Imagination to the series Symphony 101 that does the older stuff, the series Fringe that pushes the audience a little bit more into learning new things. Very fiscally sound. Community engagement, absolutely fantastic. I think engagement, planning, and evaluation for the community has already begun, and lots of examples were demonstrated in the application, along with solutions to address the comments of the community. So they are taking that feedback to heart. Wonderful partnerships, community engagement with regards to IDEA, has checked every box from what I can see in the application. Arts education, again, fantastic programs with numbers supporting who benefits, as well as the planned outcomes, very thought out and intentional. The qualifications of those developing the activities is appropriate, but I would have liked a little bit more detail about their educational backgrounds. The artistic quality, everything submitted shows an incredibly high artistic quality on multiple levels. Just a really, really enjoyable application to read and learn about this organization, and well done.
Okay, great, thank you. Second reader, Lillian.
I agree. I second basically everything. Application was a joy. One thing specifically that I love that bridges organizational excellence and community engagement is that the bylaws of the organization stipulate that at least 3 members of the orchestra and 3 members of the choir must serve on the board, which I think is a really cool way of ensuring that the active participants in their program are adequately and well represented among the decision makers for the organization. It's really cool that is that engraved. It's in their bylaws. They can't not do it. They have to have community engagement in that way if we're defining part of their community as their musicians, which I think is valid. It seems like they have incredible artistic and cultural diversity among their repertoire and their performances, which I feel like is potentially unique among the Indianapolis classical music scene. Not 100% sure about that, but it struck me as compelling. And then I thought, just from an explanation standpoint, they described their Listen Up program extremely well. Every different educational program, specifically in schools, how is it working? What are its goals? How do they measure the goals? can be hard to explain, and this one answered all the questions I had. It seems like they're really doing a good job of answering a need for music education with evidence-based and deeply artistic solutions.
I'd like to add real quick what I forgot. This, to me, was a perfect example of making sure you have a great grant writer. This grant was so specific in everything that it described. I didn't have any questions, and great grant writing makes it very, very easy and accessible.
Okay. Thank you. Opening up to the group, anything to add that's new, additional, or opposing? Okay. Go ahead and update your scores and comments based on our discussion. And when you're ready, has everybody got the next? Oh, sorry, summer stock stage is our next one. Everyone had a chance to pull it up. And I have Chandler as first reader. If you guys are ready to go, let's do it.
Okay. All right. So the Summer Stock Stage was founded in 2003. Their mission is to enrich their community through theater by inspiring young people to learn, connect, and perform. And they provide a professional and premier theater experience for young people throughout Central Indiana. In the organizational excellence section, I felt like everything was good. They seem to be in good financial health. They seem to have a good board. They did note that their current theater space is being renovated at Park Tudor, so this year they will be sort of traveling to different venues. And it seemed like that might present some different financial challenges, but they seem to be prepared for that going forward. For community engagement, I felt like they did a good job of sort of identifying some populations that they wanted to target, and they seem to have a plan to achieve that. They did note that they could be more representative of the community, so they've addressed it. It seemed like they're going to try and achieve that. I think they do a decent job of getting community feedback and input. They noted that they had issues getting feedback from younger audiences, but they were going to do a pre-concert phone survey and give that a shot to gather more feedback. Arts education is sort of at their core. They seem to have a really robust arts education program that offers a lot of different things for their students. So I would say that that section was strong as well. But yeah, overall, I think it was a really strong application.
Okay, great. Second reader, Lauren.
I don't really think I have any more anything different to add. I guess I have in the arts education, I think in both community engagement and arts education, I just say participant tracking again with regard to family income would strengthen this section, which I obviously acknowledge that is can be difficult, and sometimes you can't gather it, but it's really the only way to know if you're economically diverse. But other than that, I agree with all of Chandler's comments.
Okay, great. Opening up to the group. Is there anything new, additional, opposing? Go ahead.
I'd like to add, they're doing that move because of the construction in their long-term space at Park Tudor. But I think there's a great opportunity in what they're doing with the Rep Theater and Marion. And I think that even though it's a shift financially for this coming season, and I do think they're addressing it well, it might be an opportunity really to forge those partnerships long term and maybe not actually go back to Park Tudor as a consideration, with regards to these students having the opportunity to perform at the Rep Theater regularly. Could be a really nice opportunity to take advantage of that partnership starting out of necessity this year, but by choice moving forward.
I'd like to applaud the Eclipse program, which is like a young professionals musical theater group, since I feel like even if their general programs for high schoolers are answering like a summer need for really cool opportunities, they've identified an additional underserved population in young post-high school artists attempting to start their careers in musical theater. That's a really cool thing that they're offering to our community. And then I did just want to make a note on the community engagement part that they mentioned their Summer Stock Stage Ambassadors program as a community engagement measure, and I feel like I saw it more as a recruitment measure. Like it looks like a really good way of having these students out in the community making students in schools and the community aware of their program and like recruiting people who say, yeah, that's totally for me. But it doesn't really seem like that effective of a way of hearing back from communities based on this description. It might actually be, but that's just something that in the terms of, it seems like an audience development measure rather than a way of really doing community engagement and incorporating feedback from stakeholders, including student performers, audiences, and anyone else that interacts with the organization.
Great. Any other comments on this one?
This is just a small detail for the writer to consider. I think there's the question about outcomes. They just said outcomes differ because people differ, or I don't really remember, which I thought that was frank and brief, which is fine. I would encourage the writer to consider that I can infer as the reader that I can infer from the detailed description of your programming what an ideal outcome would be. And so maybe instead of just saying that outcomes will differ, which is true, just writing maybe what an ideal outcome would be as just a fuller a way to fill out that question is all.
I just went to it and I found it, and I think maybe I can
Oh, yeah,
offer
please.
is there, I'm like, oh yeah, they just say because of the wide age range of our participants, the outcomes vary, but then they go on to explain specific outcomes that they're looking for within each age range.
Okay.
So I think they have answered that, but it could be clearer, like maybe they don't need to include that introductory sentence.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah.
That's what I would do. I'd remove that introductory sentence because it really is very specific about each level. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's cool. I mean, it's cool from my perspective as I'm just looking at it now that they do have such different values for each grade level. It could be clearer.
Yep, great, okay. Well, if there are no more comments on Summer Stock Stage, this will conclude the fiscal year 2020 Regional Initiative Grant Panel for this morning. I'd like to thank everyone and invite the audience to